Hello, and welcome to the Media Center's 9th Local Hero Awards series, in which we showcase 5 people from the Mid-Peninsula for outstanding achievement or contribution to the community. We solicited nominations and were especially looking for the unsung heroes. Each winner is an inspiration, and each has a great story to tell. There are an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants living in this country, and over half are from Mexico. The most vulnerable among them are the children. Without a home, friends, extended family, even a comprehensible language, they arrive completely dependent on foreign people and institutions of which they have little understanding and even less control. So it's no surprise that less than 5% of them ever go to college here. But Kenia Miranda, who arrived undocumented at the age of 9, is now a sophomore at UC Santa Cruz, and she is thriving. Kenia has triumphed over a host of challenges, each of which could destroy a life. Kenia, there are so many undocumented Mexican immigrants in this country. I think it's easy for us to just say, they all have the same story. But of course, that's not true. Each one has a distinct personal story, and I want to talk about yours. So let's go back to the beginning. You're a little girl in a home with your mom and your dad and your little brother, about age 9, in a village in Mexico. What was that like?
Well, I grew up in Mexico, as you mentioned. It became really hard as we were growing up, since my dad, he became really abusive, and we went through a lot of domestic violence with my mom, and it was just really difficult to deal with him and like the whole situation. So she decided to divorce him, and this was I was about like 8 years old when this happened. So he became really like obsessive with like trying to figure out where she was like after the divorce, and like what she was doing, and like it was mainly about her. It wasn't like about, you know, his children, which is me and my brother. But so he was like following us around at some point to like, I don't know, see what she was up to. So she became really afraid of like being followed by him, and like, I don't know, he was like, he was being a stalker pretty much. So she decided that it was better for us to leave the country and just separate from him, since he was very abusive, and she wasn't sure like what he was capable of doing in the future. Like, you know, maybe like he would harm her, like not so much us, but like I feel like more towards my mom, like the hatred built towards her.
Did you grow up with a tremendous amount of fear as a result?
Yeah, at times I was just more afraid of my mom's life, like not so much of mine, but like I was always like on the lookout to see like what he was doing to her, and like what, like, you know, I was just afraid that something would happen to her, since like I grew up, you know, like witnessing like him, like, you know, beating her at times, and I woke up in the middle of the night like to screaming, and, you know, my mom crying at times. I remember one time I actually jumped on his back and was like just yelling, "Stop, like you can't do this." And he was just like, he was kind of like psychologically like just wrong. Like he would tell me like, "Oh, everything's fine," but like I obviously knew it wasn't. So it was just, you know, it was very scary at times.
Tell me about the trip and what you're expecting, and what did that do to you?
Yeah, well, she decided to just leave, and that was like really out of nowhere. I mean, I was 8 years old. I didn't really understand what leaving was. So, you know, leaving my friends, my family, like everything I had there, it was like really difficult. I didn't want to leave. I was like, no, like, where are we going? Like, I don't want to go anywhere. Like, this is my life. So, you know, she's the adult, so she had to make the decision to go. So I had no say. My brother didn't either. He was, you know, only like 4 years old, I believe. And so we left Mexico, and when I didn't even know, like, you know, what a coyote was, or like how, you know, crossing a border would be like. I don't know, I never heard about it. I didn't even know there was like another place beside Mexico, since that's like all I, you know, ever experienced or like lived in. So getting to the border, like you know, I didn't understand, like I mentioned. So it turns out like we had to like go under the wall and like crawl through there and like try to like run across, but like we didn't really succeed because like right away immigration like came down and like caught us. So it was really like, I don't know, like traumatic to like be able to like be held by like cops or like, you know, because they're technically police. So they're patrolling the area and stuff. And it was like really difficult to like feel like a criminal. It was like, I'm not like a criminal. Like I'm just, you know, I don't know what we're doing. Like I wasn't even sure what was happening. Like I didn't know it was illegal to even cross. So while we were detained by the Border Patrol, and we actually were released back to Mexico at one point, and we tried to cross again to finally, you know, make it, but we didn't. We failed again, and we got caught, and we turned out to have to go to a detention center in Pennsylvania. So we were detained there for about like 3.5 months, and it's pretty much like a prison. It's like you're incarcerated. You're not allowed to go outside unless like they give you set times. So like you have to have breakfast at a certain time. You have to have lunch at a certain time. You have to like, if they allow you to go outside and like play, it has to be like whenever they say or whenever the time is like correct. And so it was very like traumatic. It was like, what am I doing? Like I don't know where I am. Like where's my family? Like who are we here with? We have nobody. Like although we had some family members here in the U.S., but you know I had never met them. Like I don't know. Like it was just very difficult to think of my life outside of Mexico. And so we got released from the detention center, and pretty much it was weird because the Border Patrol guy, he just pretty much dropped us off at a train station or a bus station, the Greyhound station. And he was like, yeah, like go home. Like you can go ahead and leave. And I was like, okay, like we don't know English. We are stuck in a bus station. Like how do we buy tickets? We don't really know how dollars work. So it was really hard. And apparently my mom asked someone to like translate for her and like get the tickets to California. So we traveled in the bus for like 4 days from Pennsylvania all the way to California to meet up with like one of our uncles who was like the person who was gonna take care of us because immigration needed like, with the immigration case, the thing is that you have to have someone who is legally in the U.S., so a U.S. citizen, to respond for you and like take care of you, take you into their home and like, you know, be responsible for you while you're here and you have your case. So we had to go with my uncle who, you know, is a U.S. citizen here. And so getting here was just very difficult. Like from my uncle's house, that was in L.A. So from L.A. we moved to Menlo Park. And we started school there and everything. We had to get like all the necessary shots and like all of that stuff. And then as soon as I started, it was like even more difficult now because it was like with kids my age who like had grown up here, pretty much their whole life was, you know, already here. They knew English. They were just going about their days in school and like just like every other middle schooler. So yeah, I started school and like I realized that kids started making fun of me because of my accent or because I didn't speak English. Like some of them didn't want to be my friend because I don't know, I felt like they felt like I didn't belong with them or like things like that. And I was just really shocked to see like all the negativity like thrown at me because I was like not used to that. I was like used to kids like, you know, wanting to be around me and like things like that in Mexico because, you know, I already knew them since we grew up together. So yeah, like they didn't want to like be my friend or anything, and it was really depressing at times. I remember going home and like crying to my mom and saying like I don't want to go back to school, like I don't want to be there. It's really hard. Like they don't like me, and like it was just hard.
So what did you do to overcome that? What was the key?
The key was for me, it was learning English. I think like that was like my thing. I had to succeed. I had to learn it so that I, you know, could fit in with all these students that like I wasn't able to talk to before because of my like language barrier. So I just took it upon myself and I like started learning, like, you know, hanging out with the other students who also spoke Spanish, and like they started teaching me about it. So they were like telling me things that I should say or shouldn't say, and like that's the way I learned. Like it wasn't so much like through school, it was like it was on me. Like every little thing, I would watch every little thing that I said so that I would say it right. um, I remember one time during like 6th grade, I remember saying lunch wrong, and then kids just started laughing. So I remember like that's one of the things that always made me want to like do it better, like pronounce better, because like since they started laughing, I was like, no, I have to get this word right.
How did you say lunch?
I said it like lunch or something.
I'm trying to think how you could say lunch wrong.
Yeah, it was like lunch or launch. I don't remember. But yeah, they started making fun of me. So I was like, now I have to like perfect everything I say so that it doesn't sound with an accent, or like it doesn't sound wrong, or it's not wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
To what extent were you motivated by taking care of your family, your mother and your little brother?
Well, yeah, like my family was like all I had here. And I think that like motivated me to want to, you know, pursue a higher education and like get better at everything so that I could help them out in a way. Like I could raise my brother, I could teach him to be ways that, you know, that I didn't know how to handle before. So like teach him things that I didn't know, or like teach my mom, like even teach my mom English so that she can thrive in, you know, her jobs and do better for us as well.
Did you ever feel that in a weird sort of way you were the parent who was responsible for the family because of your English?
Yeah, at times. At times I felt like my mom actually, when we go to stores or stuff, she would like tell me, can you translate for me, or can you do this for me? And I felt like the weight on me all the time. I was like, I don't want to do it. Like I'm embarrassed as well. Like I don't want to go up to someone and speak to them because, you know, I don't know. That's just me. Like I'm a little embarrassed sometimes. So she would always tell me like, go translate, or go ask this, or go ask that. And I was like, no, like I don't want to. But yeah, it was always like everything would rely on me, like because of my English at times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the kind of life you were living then compared with the kind of life that you didn't want to leave in Mexico, how was it different from what you might have expected?
It's very different. Like when I look at it now, I don't want to go back to Mexico, which is weird because I didn't want to come here to begin with. I feel like my life is here now. I feel like most of my life I grew up here now. Like, yeah, like in Mexico, you know, I had like a little bit like of friends and like all these things, and I grew up with them, but it's not the same as like living your teenage years here. I feel like you're young at, you know, when you're 5 and younger. Like I feel like you don't experience as much as you do when like in your teenage years, and you know, so.
You were drawn to yucca, to
Yes.
activism.
Yes.
Where did that come from? What was the appeal for you?
Well, one of my friends from middle school was actually involved in yucca before I became involved. And I was hesitant to go because I was a little shy sometimes. So I think it was the summer of my freshman year, I decided that I should go. And I went because I actually needed a job to like help my mom like with bills and like all of that stuff. I was only like 16 years old at the time, but you know, I felt the need to like help her with you know, bills and all that. So I went and I like just to check it out for, you know, for a few months and like see if I liked it or not, and I fell in love. I literally fell in love with yucca. You know, like all the work that they were doing like spoke a lot to me. They worked on immigration issues, they were working on housing issues, they were working on for the community and like with people that I could connect to. So when I first started like working, I think we went to a rally. We went to a rally and I was like, wow, like this is like so much fun. Like, you know, you get to protest and like speak up for people, like things that I had never seen before. So I was like, wow, like this is amazing. Like I want to be a part of this. Like I'm actually interested. Like I want to stay. Like I relate to it, one, because of my immigration status, and we were working on immigration issues. So that was one of the things that kept me there. So,
what do you most want to give to the people that you were working for, and what do you think they most need?
I feel like they just need people to get involved. I feel like that's what the organization is like mainly about, people to know about, you know, their situation, know about like where they live, the history, and like learn how to advocate for themselves. I think that's a big part of the organization, like learning how to advocate for yourself and for your community, and like not so focused on you, but like looking at the bigger picture and looking at like how it affects not only your family or like, you know, your community, but like everywhere in the country, like how it affects people like you.
What would you like to tell most residents who are not immigrants, non-immigrants, whatever the word is, about the immigrant community? What do the rest of us not understand?
I feel like most people don't understand that we're not criminals. I feel like most people, a lot of times, you know, media or whatever it is has like done a good job in like portraying immigrants or, you know, undocumented people in a certain light and like putting them, you know, as criminals, or like even the government, like, you know, calling them aliens, which is like a word that, I don't know, I'm not okay with. I feel like very, you know, it's not okay with me. So like, I feel like it's very discriminating against like the immigrant community. One, because, you know, alien is just not the word to use. It's called, you know, they're undocumented and they're not here because they're criminals. Like they didn't, you know, they did something wrong for crossing the border because it's illegal here. But like, it's not like they did, you know, they killed someone or they did something like that. So I feel like most of the time I felt targeted because like I felt like criminalized. I felt like I did something wrong, but in reality, like crossing the border was like not as bad as like, you know, killing a person or something like that. So
what's been the hardest part for you, and what has made you stronger?
The hardest part for me, I think, was like assimilating to the whole, you know, U.S. Situation. I don't know, like I feel like it was really hard to adjust to, one, the language, the, you know, the culture. It was very different for me. And, you know, I think it's easy to say that it's not as difficult if you like put everything to it. It's like all your heart and like, you know, like if you put all your, like, I just lost it.
Well, I'm just thinking of how you may have been strengthened by this.
I think I became strong through it because it like taught me a lot. It like, with all my failures, you know, like not being able to speak English, like it just made me want to do more for myself and like, you know, my family to begin with. But then when I started doing Yucca, I realized that it wasn't just about me or my family. Like it was about like everybody else who's like out there and is struggling or did struggle to learn English or to like, you know, adjust to this country, like in general.
When you look at what your mother did, do you now go back and have tremendous respect for her?
Yes, I do. I respect my mother a lot. I feel like if it weren't for her, like if she wouldn't have made that decision, like I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Going back to Yucca and the fact that you're now a successful university student, one of the few, are you hoping eventually to go back to that life of activism, and what's your goal?
Yes, actually, going into school, I thought, you know, I'm going to major in politics and, you know, do a lot with that so that I can create change in my community. But I feel like I wasn't really meant for that. I feel like I was meant for doing the groundwork, to doing like community organizing and doing all of that. So I'm going to start taking classes that revolve around that. Community studies and, you know, learning more about like how to advocate for the community and possibly one day work in that again.
Excellent. Well, best of luck in that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm very glad you're in this country, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much.
Do you know someone who has overcome significant hardship and has an inspiring story to tell? Someone who has sacrificed or given over and above to the community and deserves some recognition? If so, please contact us with your nomination for next year's Local Hero Awards. To find out more about our local heroes and to watch interviews with all the winners, visit our website, midpennmedia.org. At the Mid-Penn Media Center, you can make your own videos and television programs and take classes in all aspects of media production. You can also hire our professional services team. To find out more about that, go to mcproservices.com. Congratulations to all our winners, and thank you for watching.